Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Cloud on Air. These are your live webinars that we're hosting every single Tuesday for the month of February. I'm your host, Evan Jones, and today we're going to be talking about what can you build with Google Cloud in 10 minutes or less. So first, give me a little bit of background about myself and also our team behind the scenes here to answer your questions anytime during the session here. So I'm a technical curriculum developer on the Google Cloud team, and I specialize in building data and machine learning courses. And I'm extremely excited to be here with you all today to give you a sense of what you can do on Google Cloud. But behind the scenes, we also have a team of a moderation panel, Barry, one of my good friends, who's going to be helping answering your questions live that you can post anytime during this session right below this window. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be learning today. So first up, I'm going to give you about a 15-minute lecture in what we're going to be doing for the Google Cloud Platform. Specifically, we're going to be spinning up a VM instance and launching a web server, hopefully with under 10 minutes to spare, so you all watching can keep me accountable. And we're also going to be doing a live question and answer session at the end. But that doesn't mean you have to hold your best questions until the end of the webinar. Feel free to type them live, and they'll be get answered anytime by our moderation team. So let's go ahead and get started. Ultimately, I'm here to help you start out your Google Cloud journey today. So if you've never heard of Google Cloud or you've heard of cloud technologies, but you haven't gotten really a chance to get experience with launching a virtual machine, or you've heard a lot of these acronyms and you don't know where to start, you're exactly in the right place. So today what we're going to be doing is three different things. We're going to set up in your interactive Quick Labs environment a virtual machine that's going to be launching a web server. And again, we're going to shoot that in an audacious goal of 10 minutes or less. And then what you can do later on is, this is just going to be one lab. I like to call it the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be 7 labs in what we call the Google Cloud Platform Essentials Quest, which is just a series of different labs in our lab environment platform. So later on today or tomorrow, we're going to give you free credits so you can take the rest of the labs at your leisure. So this is just to continue your training at your own pace. And after that, if you really get enthused, and we hope you will, you can also take more training. And if you want to hear the sounds of my voice and my other training compatriots here, you can go to cloud.google.com/training and take some more on-demand online courses through Coursera, or sign up for a local course as well. But let's get started. So as I mentioned, our primary goal today, I don't really like to do a lot of talking, so I'd like to give you an interactive live demo of exactly what we're going to be doing, and you can follow along in the labs environment that we're going to be showing you soon. So ultimate end goal, we want to spin up a web server on a virtual machine box, 10 minutes or less. Let's see if we can't do it. Get ready to follow along. So if there's any slide that I want you to pay attention to, it's this one. So in the chat below, you're going to have this link as well, but if you don't, type into your browser now, goo.gl/pbvwpl, making sure to note the capitals. And this is how you're going to get 20 free lab credits just for showing up today. So this will start you off on our labs environment inside of Quick Labs. And all of our sandbox student accounts and instructions for these labs are hosted within this platform. So I'm going to leave that up there for just a few more seconds while you take that down or click on it from below. Once you're there, I want you to browse the quests. So in the upper left-hand corner, if you're not already there, that little rectangle with a bunch of other squares inside of it, that's your lab catalog for Quick Labs. Click on that, then click on quests, and then find the one marked GCP Essentials. So as you notice, there's a ton of different tracks that you could take for those quests. So if you're interested in data and machine learning, or a bunch of these other different topics that are there, like Kubernetes, for example, or ML APIs, those are a little bit more advanced. We're going to start out with the bare bones basics, which is setting up Google Compute Engine to process things in a virtual machine. Click on GCP Essentials. And now in order to redeem those 20 free credits, and these are lab credits, click on Enroll in this quest. And a quest, again, is just a collection of, in this particular case, 7 different labs. And in today's session, we'll just be going through that first one, which is creating your very first virtual machine. So enroll in the quest. Click on the Creating Virtual Machine lab. You'll be prompted with this modal that says Lab Access costs 1 credit. And you should see something that says, if you went through that link and you enrolled in that you have 20 credits available. Go ahead and spend one of those credits to launch this particular lab. Now, I'll ask you not to start the lab yet, because we're going to be doing it together a little bit later. But if you're having any technical issues whatsoever in getting to this page, ultimately it'll look like this, with that green Start Lab button just aching to be pressed. If you can't get to this page, be sure to type into the chat below. And we have Jade and Barry here to help you out from the Quick Lab side and our side at Google to help you out. Pause on that page because that's going to be our lab instructions that we're going to be going through together. And a little bit about the Quick Labs environment, why we're asking you to log into Quick Labs instead of using your own Google Cloud Platform account. If you don't have a Google Cloud Platform account, or if you didn't want to use your own personal account, these are free sandbox accounts with these credits that we've given you. And what happens is it'll automatically create this email address and password for you. And then it'll open up the console for you for a predetermined period of time. In this particular case, the lab is live for 30 minutes. So one of the things I'll ask you to do, all the way on the don't side there, is if and when you do start the lab, don't click end lab prematurely, because that'll shut down all of your resources as well. And we'll go through this when we actually go through the lab together. But in one tab in your browser, just be sure that you have that open as well. OK. I promised you that I'm going to be a very short lecturer. So we have about 5 minutes of topics to cover on the cloud in general. And then we're going to jump into doing this lab together. And you guys can time me to see if we can do it in 10 minutes or less. All right, one of my favorite topics to talk about. Before my career here at Google, I was a freelance web designer and web developer. And I ended up wearing a ton of different hats. So although I really like to work and make these beautiful graphics and images and design a beautiful UI for the site, ultimately it came time to answer the question of, where am I going to host this? Where am I going to store this data? If folks are uploading things to my site, where are those ultimately going to get stored? So in addition to having a design hat on, or if you're writing software programs, having your programming hat on, which is what you really want to focus on, back in the day, you also had to be almost like a hardware engineer or an infrastructure engineer, just to make sure that you had enough storage for all the things that you're looking to store and serve. You had enough compute power if you're running a lot of compute and computational jobs, or if you just have any kind of computations for your applications, you needed to make sure that you had a big enough server or CPU to process that. Also for latency, do you have enough networking? And last but not least, if a server disk fails or there is an operating system update that needs to be installed, you also need to be kind of a DBA or an infrastructure technician to make sure that all of your hardware is running smoothly. So you wore many of these different hats, and we all know a jack of all trades, master of none. It's not in your best interest to be focused on infrastructure when ultimately you want to be focused on building the latest and greatest business software, whatever it is that your business is looking to do. So what happened in the last 10 years? So back when I was building websites, I had to buy or rent out a box, a server that's sitting in my closet somewhere to ultimately serve up these web pages, and I have to go in and manually install software updates and operating system updates. Where has that space gone? So all the way on the left you see there is the data center where I'm managing all this stuff myself. We call that on-premise or physical, or you're co-located there. And eventually it moved into, well, everyone else is having the same problem. We all don't want to buy these boxes, and even if we're perfectly good at maintaining them and we're experts at hardware, a lot of times the machines are sitting unused and we're still paying for electricity costs, even when the demand on our website isn't that high, until Black Friday comes along, and then coincidentally we don't have enough server capacity. So it's hard to manage the ups and the downs when we just have a static amount of hardware. So what that generally shifted to was a virtualization environment where we could rent out time in these machines, but you would still be responsible for installing and managing and dealing with all the maintenance headaches that went therein as well. So what has ultimately happened with this big push to cloud? So all the way on the right, you see that the catchphrase is that it's serverless. It's fully automated. So unless you really liked managing that hardware yourself, which a lot of people didn't, they really wanted to focus on their core competency, which is building amazing software models, designing incredible website and application experiences, you no longer need to worry about infrastructure. It's fully managed, and in the example that I gave, where Black Friday you might not have enough servers, and then if there's a slow Monday or Tuesday, you have way too much capacity, so you're wasting time, and you have the opportunity cost of servers sitting there. You want this more of an elastic, scalable when you need it, and it scales down when you don't. And that's exactly where Google Cloud Platform comes into play. So Google Cloud Platform, I like to say Google's been doing cloud for more than 10 years, but you just heard of it recently. It's because Google has been running its own private cloud because it ultimately had to solve the exact same problems that you've had to solve, which is if you're going to be organizing all the world's information and making it accessible to everybody around the world, Google had to solve this hardware problem for itself. And so they invested millions of dollars in infrastructure and building these undersea cables that you see here for networking, and these data centers all around the world, including edge locations to make sure that your Google's web pages and search queries can be accessed anywhere throughout the world. So, as they like to say, don't reinvent the wheel. If Google's already got the infrastructure in place, and it's good enough for things like Gmail, Google Photos, and any of the other Google applications and answering your search queries, it's going to be good enough for your applications as well. So this is ultimately what makes Google Google. And only recently, in the last 5 years or so, Google has made that hardware, that infrastructure available to you all for your use in what's called the Google Cloud Platform. So, say I've convinced you on cloud. You might be faced with a lot of different product choices or icons, and you might not be sure where to start. So, okay, I've got the idea that it's a platform, but I don't really know, should I be using App Engine? Should I be using, do I have a big data need? I need a diagram or some kind of training to figure out where I should start. And you know that the cloud in and of itself is elastic and scalable, but the key word that I want you to focus on for today is that it's a platform. It can be anything that you want it to be. So the key 3 areas of the cloud: compute, doing a lot of computational power, say you're running a bunch of scripts, or you're serving up your applications, or you're performing a lot of computation. Data and analytics, that's my specialty. So if you're running analysis over petabytes of data and you want it to be done at a blazing fast speed, and you don't want to worry about the size of your hard drive limiting the amount of data that you can store, the platform can be used for that as well. Or if you wanted to get into machine learning. And last but not least, if you wanted to not worry about load balancing or any of these other typical headaches that it comes with running an entire infrastructure enterprise, Google Cloud Platform provides those product options for you there as well. But since this is our first foray into this, we're going to focus on one of the very fundamental building blocks. I would say there's 2. The first one is compute, which is what we're going to be spinning up with our virtual machine today. And then in future sessions and webinars, you're going to learn about Google Cloud Storage, where you can actually store a lot of that data. So let's start our journey. So I promised I wouldn't talk for too long without showing you an amazing demo. So let's jump into our lab, which is creating a virtual machine on GCP, Google Cloud Platform. And we're going to put a web server software, Nginx, on that box in 10 minutes or less. So what I'll ask you to do is, right now, you should have Quick Labs. You've already navigated to GCP Essentials down here. And we'll talk a little bit more about these labs and what you can do after this. And in here, you'll see the 7 labs that are part of this series. So if you're already getting excited for things like, oh man, we're going to be doing Kubernetes and stack drivers, you can see on my shirt here, and then setting up load balancers, this is all part of this. I like to think of this as your foundation. So we're going to start with this first lab and this first quest. Again, it's the tip of the iceberg. So we're going to create a virtual machine. Now I've finally caught up to you all playing along at home, and we're going to actually start the lab together. So go ahead and click on Start Lab. Now, one of the first gotchas I'm going to say is we're only going to be doing part of this lab. So I'm going to ask you to click on, in the right-hand side, create a new instance from the Cloud Console. That's going to jump us down all the way here. So if you're playing along, I want you to actually not start at the very start of the lab. You're going to be starting from where the text says, create a new instance from the Cloud Console. And we've got a little bit over 9 minutes to see if Evan can't do this. OK, so ultimately, we're going to be having 2 tabs. One is your lab instructions, which is what we're looking at right now. And the second, we actually need to get to the cloud. So to get to the cloud, we need to open the Cloud Console. I'm just going to click on this yellow button here. And here's the second gotcha. The first gotcha is if you're not starting in the same place I am in the lab, a lot of what I'm going to be doing is going to look very strange. And the second gotcha is when you're prompted to sign in with your Google Cloud account, be sure you go back to Quick Labs and copy the auto-generated username that you see there. I'm going to paste that in. And again, a lot of times when we see these Google sign-ins, we automatically type in if you have your account already. You might just type in your personal account, but that would defeat the point of having this sandbox environment. Now, your account's going to be different than mine. And once you're taken to this screen, you accept the terms of service. Don't worry about setting up any recovery options. And once you've accepted the additional terms of service, you should be taken to a screen like this. If you're taken to a screen that says choose your project, and it has a Quick Labs-resources, and then Quick Labs-GCP and some alphanumeric characters, be sure that you're on the Quick Labs-GCP with the alphanumeric characters, because that's your automatically generated Google Cloud Platform account. So you should already give yourselves a pat on the back because now you've actually accessed the Google Cloud Platform. So when you or your company or your friends are working in GCP, this is what they say that they mean. So you have a bunch of different products and services that you can open up on the left side menu here. And what we're going to be focusing on today is spinning up a virtual machine. So go ahead and click on Compute Engine. And these are exactly following the steps of the lab as well. Now we have a bunch of different options. The default one is, what instances of a virtual machine do we have? Go ahead and click on Create, because we don't have any so far. And it's going to prompt you with a couple of different options. There's a lot of custom machine types, and you can specify the zone and the size of the CPU. I mean, they go up from one virtual CPU to, I believe, 96 with over 100 gigabytes of RAM. So you can get some pretty big machine instances out there. I'm just going to type in a name. You can feel free to copy this as well, GCE Lab. And then the most important thing, the third gotcha, is since we're going to be creating a web server, we want folks to access that server externally through our IP address. That's the foundation of the internet and how the web works, by allowing Hypertext Transfer Protocol or HTTP traffic allowed. Just that first box, not both of them. And go ahead and click on Create. All right, while that instance itself gets spun up in this particular zone, should only take about a minute or two, let's revisit the lab and see what else we have left. So a little over 6 minutes. Let's see if I can't get you guys on a web server even ahead of time. So scrolling down in the lab, you see that we've set up the virtual machine instance. And now ultimately what we want to do is we need to get root access to that web server. And how you do that is we're actually going to SSH, or grant ourselves access into the VM. And I'm going to copy this first command onto my clipboard. And I'm going to go back. And if you see the good news with the green check right here, it means that this instance is running, so your VM is there for you. Now, the fourth gotcha is I've already disabled it, but sometimes when you click on that SSH, if you have a browser where it blocks your pop-ups, go ahead and disable that. And then this window will come up, and this will be a terminal into your own instance that you just spun up literally a minute ago. So I mean, compare this to the past again. So if you were buying servers and putting them in your garage, literally the time to access the server and install what you want could be days, if not weeks, to set everything up correctly. And here, just in the span of 5 to 10 minutes, we now have a box that we can access. So I'm going to root into the server. So just paste in that command or type it out, sudo su dash. And we want to make sure that the box has the latest. By default, since we didn't change it, it's going to be a Linux box. So I'm going to see if there's any Debian Linux updates to the operating system. So I'm just going to copy the next command here in the lab, which is apt-get update. So bring everything up to date. And behind the scenes, it's going to reach out and see if there's anything else that needs to be updated on our operating system. And after it's done that, this virtual machine is ready for our use. So now before we install the Nginx web server, I'm going to ask you to copy this to your clipboard. All you're doing is apt-get install Nginx. This is the really important command. It's just a one-line command that installs a web server. What I'd like you to do is go back to Compute Engine. Before you install the web server, click on this external IP address. Again, this is, every website that's out there has an external IP address linked to it. And it says that the site can't be reached. So if you have this page, you're doing fantastic. Because ultimately, we have not installed the web server yet. And Nginx is just an open source web server software that will allow folks to connect in through to your box. And again, so we're installing a web server, but if you wanted to run things like Python scripts or do any kind of processing, anything that you would want to use a machine for, you can use a virtual machine for. So let's get back into our terminal. We're going to install Nginx. After that's done, it's setting up all the tunnels. While that's running, I'm going to copy the last command, which is making sure that the Nginx process is running. And we are very near the finish line here. So let's just see if it's running. Good, it's got master processes for Nginx. So crossing your fingers, with just over 3 minutes to spare, go into that tab where you have that external IP address already there. And just for showmanship, we're just going to reload it in this tab. So if you're taken to Welcome to Nginx, that's the default page for your web server. That means it's successfully installed, and you can access it externally through that IP address. So congratulations if you've gotten to this point. If you're wondering how I got to this IP address again, go back into Compute Engine, click on External IP, and that will bring you here. So this is your blank slate. From a VM, let's recap, you've created a virtual machine, and it can be of the size of your choosing, but by default, we just went with the default settings. And with just a few lines of the command terminal, we've opened up a web server, and now you've accessed your VM instance through the web. So congratulations. All right. So I'll pause here and basically say, even if your ultimate end goal is not to create a web server, you want to run other computational jobs, you want to load up applications, you want to do batch processing on your data, anything that, as I mentioned before, that you can use a machine for, you can load up into that virtual machine instance. Now, the interesting part about this is, as you're going to learn as you move through the different labs in the series, is there's still better and better ways of doing this type of processing. So maybe you're thinking, well, Evan, I don't want to root access into a server and install operating system software and then install anything dealing with the terminal. I really don't want to do. Is there a way, or what are the latest and greatest technologies that prevent me from having to even touch the terminal? And how do I manage multiple instances of Compute Engine so I can just focus on building software? So if you're interested in that type of technology and you're really hungry to learn more about how, for example, Kubernetes in one of the labs you can experience will actually orchestrate and manage a lot of those VMs for you behind the scenes, then just let this be the first part of your journey into taking a lot of those different labs. So this is literally just the start. You've created your very first, we have to start somewhere. So you've created your very first VM, but that's just going to be the first step that you're going to take in this particular quest. All right. So I'm going to close out of my terminal. What I'll ask you to do is, when you're ready, you can actually end that lab. Ended it with a minute to spare. And please do rate the labs if there's any issues that you come across them, because our team on the curriculum development side tries to do a good job of creating all these exciting and engaging labs for you all. And speaking of all the different options that you have, to further incentivize you all, since again, the world is there for those who show up, and obviously you are doing an amazing first job creating this first virtual machine here at 9 a.m. Pacific. So we want to reward you. If in the next 3 or 4 days you complete the rest of this lab, since we only did part of it, you want to complete the rest of the Creating a Virtual Machine lab and the other 6 labs in the quest for GCP Essentials, then what we'll give you is an additional $200 in GCP credit. So for your own personal account outside of Quick Labs, when you're ready to actually do this for yourself and create your own GCP account, you'll be credited an additional $200 there to work with. In addition, honestly, more valuable to that, in my personal opinion, is getting the experience with things like, oh, I now know how to create a virtual machine instance. And you get this recognition of attendance, and you win some pretty cool badges as well. And dare I say, bragging rights for your friends. So you can say, hey, I can set up a VM in 10 minutes or 5 minutes or less, can you? As I like to say, this is just the very first step in your journey. What we on the training team here really want, our ultimate end goal is to get you excited about using the cloud. And at the end of the day, if you're a machine learning researcher or a data scientist, or if you're someone that's just looking to build a better website or build a better mobile application or a UI UX experience, and you don't want to worry about hardware, you don't want to worry about infrastructure, you want to rely on Google's security for infrastructure and hardware, but you don't really know where to start, and this is your best first step, is to take these. You already have gotten familiarity with what the Google Cloud Platform looks like. That's that blue dashboard that we were looking at previously. And then these trainings go hand in hand. So if you wanted to take, for example, oh, I'm curious to learn more about deploying an application, you could take the Deploying Applications quest. You've mastered GCP Essentials. You completed those 7 labs. Now you want to move on to machine learning APIs. You want to learn how to translate different languages, classify images. If you want to learn about orchestration of software automatically behind the scenes, you could take Kubernetes. Again, this is, I don't want to be prescriptive in designating what your learning journey should take. just start with the foundation of the essentials here, and depending upon your business needs and ultimately what interests you, continue on with the more quests. And new content is added here every single month, and the labs are designed to be interactive and exactly like the one that you experienced today. All right, with that said, we're going to take a quick pause, and all the questions that you've been writing and furiously want to get answered, we'll come back live and we'll choose the top questions to answer live here in this webinar. We'll be right back. All right, well, I hope you all enjoyed the live demo and you're able to follow along. Now we have a couple of live questions from the audience. Number one is you see here, where do I log into Quick Labs? So the best place to just keep this in the back of your mind, Quick Labs, you'll just have to memorize the spelling of it. It's google.quicklabs, QWIKLABS.com. If you go to google.quicklabs.com, you'll see a massive banner that says, I'm looking at it here, if you go there, it says real-time training in real environments. And what you can do is browse that hands-on lab catalog. Now, the thing is, for this webinar session, be sure to use that Google short link that we showed to you a little bit earlier that hopefully is still stored in the chat below, because that's going to give you those 20 free credits. So if you try to log in and sign into Quick Labs through the normal route that anybody else outside of this webinar will use, you won't get those 20 free credits. Often a question that comes up as well is, if you've enrolled in this quest previously, and you say you got halfway through and then you attended this webinar, and then you're wondering like, hey, how do I get my 20 free credits? The best thing to do is unenroll or de-enroll, I'm not sure how to say it, and then re-enroll, and you'll get those 20 free credits attributed to your account as well. And again, the big honeypot at the end is if you complete all 7 of those labs in the GCP Essentials quest, the entire quest, not only do you get an awesome badge and you look really cool, but you'll get that additional $200 in GCP credits as well. And you've got about 4 days to do that. So if you enjoy that first lab, just honestly keep moving right through them. Question number 2, I've never used the Google Cloud Platform, and I don't use G Suite or Gmail. Can I still take these labs? Well, I have to set up a Google account. Well, the great news about Quick Labs is you don't need to. You can sign up to Quick Labs with any email address that you have. And even if you have a Google email address and you want to just use a different email address, you're more than welcome to. Just sign up with whatever email that you have. And then once you actually log in, you might be asking, well, hey, ultimately, am I not going to be using the Google Cloud Platform? Don't I need a Google account for that? And that's the super great thing about Quick Labs is it's our training platform. So it'll automatically create these alphanumeric usernames and passwords. So you'll get your own personalized @quicklabs.net email and that generated password that you saw. And that's what, as you remember from the demo, I was copying and pasting into the login. And then that account is live for the durations of your labs. And then some of these labs are short, like the basics ones are 30 minutes. And some of the machine learning ones that we just wrote earlier this year could take you upwards of 2 to 3 hours because they're very, very advanced, and they'll hold your hand every step of the way as you interact with not just compute, but 5 or 6 different products in the GCP, the Google Cloud Platform project account. Number 3, I've enrolled in a quest but still have 0 credit. What else do I have to do? I think I answered that a little bit with unenroll yourself and then re-enroll yourself, making sure to ultimately use that link, because when you click on that link, there's special URL parameters that actually get passed through. Number 4, actually, how do I get access to these labs? What does it cost? So google.quicklabs.com, bookmark that URL. And if you forget that, you can go to cloud.google.com/training, and then all these labs will be linked there as well. Then you can sign in and sign up. Some of the labs that will start you out, some of the initial labs are free, but most of the labs will actually cost credits. And to get these credits, what you can do is you purchase them in you can purchase them individually, but there's also a bulk discount. So if you want to buy, say, 1,000 lab credits for your entire company, there is a discounting in bulk as well. The pricing is pretty transparent when you get into the purchasing or accessing the lab credits. It'll prompt you to get the credits before you can take the lab. That answers number 5, which is several of us at the company that want to take the lab and get a company account. Yeah, I'm more than welcome to buy in bulk and distribute as well. Number 6, if I know the basics already, I've spun up VMs, I'm an expert at this already, do you have any advanced labs? And yes, we do. Some of the labs, honestly, even some of the labs I've written myself last year, I'll go back into them and I'm like, wait a minute, at the end of the day, I have to build this machine learning model that translates 3 languages and classifies these images. How on earth did we do this again? And the good news about taking the labs again is it'll take you all the way from start to finish. So even if it's a super complex topic, if I'm going to throw scary words at you like Kubernetes or machine learning, they're very, very accessible when you partner with the training and the labs that we have available to you here. I'd highly encourage you. I mean, I'm super biased because I created some of the data in the machine learning ones, but the ones on application development, monitoring your security of your applications, there's over 100 labs last I checked, and a lot of them do get pretty advanced. But what I really would like to leave you guys with is, yeah, you can take the labs individually, but the quests are there almost in a linear fashion. So you can go a la carte and take a few labs. Oh, I'm interested in Kubernetes, I'm interested in more on Google Cloud Storage, and kind of manage your own ad hoc curriculum. But the quests, I would say, organize those labs in a prescriptive order to make it a little bit more easier for you to kind of go through them linearly, because the concepts build on each other. Last but not least, what happens if I get stuck doing a lab? Where can I get help? So this is a side plug for Coursera. A lot of our courses on our online e-learning platform for Coursera, you can go to cloud.google.com/training. And from there, you can actually access on-demand Coursera courses, which also feature these same Quick Labs labs. And the benefit there is you can actually, when you get stuck in a lab, Coursera has a forum for each of the different courses that you take on there. And then course creators like myself and other subject matter experts or SMEs monitor those forums really, really actively. And you can get the benefit of students that may have already asked your question or had an issue with that lab in the past. But at the end of the day, if that's for more of a, I'm struggling with a concept, or this isn't really, I want to ask more people about how to better understand what's going on. If you're having any technical issues whatsoever, and regardless of whether or not you use Coursera or not, the Quick Labs support team is absolutely amazing. So inside of a lab, if you ever run into access issues or any kind of strange things where your account gets deprovisioned for whatever reason, in the lower right-hand corner, there's a button that says support, and you can open up a ticket with the support team, and they're extremely good about responding in a really quick fashion. So I guess those would be the two things that I would leave you with: is take the trainings wherever you see them, align yourself to a track that interests you. If you want a more classroom type experience, you can take the Coursera courses, or you can even register for in-person courses where you can get an instructor like me that'll deliver it in a physical location. And then last but not least, if you have any issues with the labs on a technical level, use that support ticketing system as well. Let's see, another question that I would leave you with. Last bits of advice. So before I lose you guys, honestly, it's getting the opportunity to come up here and teach you even just the basics of spinning up a virtual machine. It's not about the tools or technology. It's about the willingness and the excitement that you all have to tune in 9 a.m. on a Pacific time on a Tuesday morning to even attempt something like this. So like I said briefly in the webinar earlier, the world is there for those who show up. I myself didn't learn a lot of these concepts from a textbook. It's a lot of on-the-job training. So if you're in an organization that could range the spectrum of interested in cloud, but unsure of where to start, or you're already using cloud and you're pretty deep on the technical scale, you're going to find these trainings there for you. And my only piece of advice is don't be afraid to fail. So much like the best machine learning algorithms are built upon many, many, many thousands of iterations of failure until you find the one that works, it's the same way with learning. So the good news about these labs, they'll always be there for you, and just honestly have a blast and try to break them. If you can find a lab with a way that you would do it better, submit a support ticket, and then hopefully you'll get a message from me saying, hey, you did an awesome job in correcting this, or I love the direction that you're taking it as well. But I mean, the last two words that I'll leave you with is just have fun with it. The cloud technology is evolving, and I'm sure 5 years from now we're going to be giving these new webinars for you, and the rest of the webinars that you take throughout the day today and every Tuesday here in February are just going to give you a taste of some of the technology that's out there here at Google for you to use on Google Cloud Platform. But the space is phenomenally growing, and it's ever changing as well. So keep yourself abreast of the latest updates that are coming, and more importantly than that, keep practicing with these hands-on labs. All right, well, that does it for me here in the studio in Mountain View, California. I want you to stay tuned for your next session, which arguably has an even more exciting title than mine, which is What is Love? Applying machine learning to help win the hearts of your customers. And you'll be going over to the studio in Seattle. See you guys later.